important points of this, and I want them to resonate with you. Lee Bogner, who's about to join us, I told him join me about halfway through your introduction. He's an e-commerce executive and has been one since 1996, which means since e-commerce existed, if you remember that. He's a Mars Global Global Enterprise Architect for e-commerce and digital innovations. So what does he do? What does Lee do? Well, Lee advises global emerging market businesses, which of course Mars is a very big company, on D2C, direct to consumer, B2B, business to business, and hybrid online marketplace e-commerce strategies and operations. That means how do you sell stuff and do stuff online? And if you've been doing this since '96, Lee obviously has a good handle on how to do that. On top of that, there are the hybrid. This is my favorite. The hybrid B2D2C e-commerce, social video, and community e-commerce and analytics. So big basket of skills. But the one last thing I want to say is not only is Lee out there doing that for his business and other the other people he's helping in the world that are in his orbit, he's also been a professor at Hofstra University Zarb School of Business, teaching business strategy and masters in the master's degree program. And any of you who've ever gone to graduate school know the people you want to learn from are the people who actually are doing it. So with no further ado, Lee Bogner, I turn it over to you. I disappear and I will see you back in the land of Q&A. And by the way, Lee works for one of my favorite companies and you've all bought some of his products.
Chris, before I start, how do I minimize my picture is all over the screen? I need to see my slides. Sorry about that. I'm not hearing you.
I was just muted. You probably just have a screen. You're just
okay. Let me just try this. Okay, good. Can everybody see me still?
Yeah, I can see you. You're good.
Okay, hey, great. Thank you, Chris. I'm all set.
Lee, before you get going, Lee, what's that ball cap back there behind you, man? What is that?
Yeah. Before I get started, just to show you, I know that most of you in the world have a favorite candy, and one of mine is M&Ms. And you can see at the bottom of my screen the various candies on the lower right, the ice creams, the gums, the Snickers, the Mars bars in Europe and other places. We're a company that's global, as Chris mentioned, in over 80 countries. But something that you might not realize is that we're the world's largest pet care and pet food company. Our products include, on the lower left, Pedigree and Royal Canin prescription-based pet food. We also are very big in veterinary health, so we're a service company. We have over 5,000 hospital clinics through various chains, and we keep adding to that part of our business. Thank you, Chris, Jose, and Brian for inviting me. I think this is my third Proqis event speaking at, and I totally love it. And as Chris mentioned, feel free to engage with me. You see I'm on LinkedIn. Happy to talk afterward. Peer networking is a big part of what we do here at Mars, also in my university work. So today I want to focus on the importance of enterprise architecture. A couple other things in my word salad of a bio. I've been with, like Chris, I've been with Accenture, and I've also been with J&J. So that goes back the last 10, 12 years, primarily as a strategic enterprise architect. And I'd like to focus on that today, especially on innovation and the importance of enterprise architecture within global organizations and across multiple business segments to help with innovation and be thought leaders. And really today I'm going to focus on how enterprise architecture helps create value in this area of digital innovation. So let me kind of get started with that and driving strategy by really helping the enterprise architect itself for change. And enterprise architecture on the top left, in some businesses, I spoke recently on this topic, and some top Fortune 500 companies don't even have an enterprise architecture function. Others are in various stages of legacy, maturity, and then moving up the curve to mid-level and optimization. And as you can imagine, if you look at a CMMI, capabilities maturity matrix. Most companies are on the level 3 at a level 5 at the top. And I'd say we're very proud that we're probably at 3.5 or 4. So within organizations that either have and the ones that don't, definitions may vary. So let's just start with that. What is enterprise architecture really about on the top left? A smart EA organization models the entire organization to help it make informed strategic decisions. And these are around things such as digital transformation and innovation. And yes, we go deep into the tech, but it's also about new business models, digital business, new operations models, people and process, and new technologies that can be prudently and pragmatically brought into a company. On the lower left, how is it used? Well, we help to steer decision-making at the leadership level within the various businesses. We have our candy business, we have our pet business, we have our human food business, we have our life sciences business. So myself in particular, work across all of those areas. And we help them understand what are the future state architectures, not only solutions, but operating and deployment models that businesses need to be thinking about to meet their objectives. So up on the top right, we deliver value by presenting, and it's very important, to the business and the IT leaders within our various businesses. Again, I talked about us being global and cross business. And we help them with pertinent recommendations for strategies, policies, and solutions. How does this help them? Well, it helps them to capitalize on these recommendations to meet and drive their own business goals and objectives and strategies and the measurement of those. Because at the end of the day, they need to drive revenue in their businesses, and we're here to help them. So what is our scope on the bottom right? It's not just technology, as I mentioned, but it's about people and organizing your organization to build out architectures and drive them to optimize your business. It's about workflows and processes in digital business areas. It's about better use of information and leveraging that across your various silos of business, and then out and even broader across your business segments, which in our business are distinct, but we're doing more and more thanks to EA, sharing data and sharing methodology and people and process and solutions, and even commercial agreements and the like across our various businesses, which is totally new to our organization. And the other aspect of it is the external environment. How do you work within broad ecosystems, not just within the global enterprise of a huge company like Mars with 130,000 people in 80 countries and 4 main business segments, but how do we work within our markets and regions and work within the domains of competitors, business partners, and even within the markets and countries? That's a big component. So how do we start? We start effectively with a foundation. We put together this foundation, even though we had a little bit of enterprise architecture about 5 years ago. We started 4 or 5 years ago and putting together a mission statement and a direction that enabled us to not only get our arms around what the various businesses were doing, but also begin to rationalize by simplifying on the left, next transforming our businesses and moving them fast, and then at the bottom left, seizing value through innovation. I'll go through these kind of quickly, but in general, when you start with simplification, we're identifying and reducing risk and reducing complexity. Many of you, I'm sure, in your organizations have hundreds, if not thousands, of applications and technical debt that are part of your organization. And that's one of the first areas we attacked. So in order to reduce that debt and rationalize the legitimacy at a point in time, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, do we really need all this legacy that built up over the last 10, 20, 30 years? So as we did that, we also streamlined and put a focus on digital first, digital transformation and innovation. And we were able to recoup either dead resources or recoup funding that was being wasted, and then begin to drive that into our transformation and innovation efforts. And up on the right 2 columns, you see up at the top, these are various ways that we collect, report on, we show the dynamics of our rationalization efforts up on the top middle, or our transformation projects up on the top right. This helps us drive not only to the Office of the President, but down through the President and the CIO levels of our various business segments. So that's simplify. Transform is another component. So here's where we want to be able to standardize things to some degree, but also accept innovation, but have the ability to understand our capabilities that are needed with products and platforms aligned to architectural standards. So architectural standards will be part of what we do and what we publish and what we promote. This allows us to drive not only technology strategy, but operating model and business strategy at speed and quality through standardization. Now, that's not to say we're rigid. That's not to say it's this or nothing. We are open-minded, and I'll go into how we help make that happen. And in the middle, again, these are things that we do. We look at enterprise architecture. We review projects coming in. Do they meet our transformation agenda? And if they don't, can we tolerate them for a period of time? Or do we have to help turn those projects into other projects that are underway, or initiate new projects and programs that better suit what they're trying to do? And again, the enterprise architect thought leadership helps in all of these areas, and I'll talk about how we do that. And then at the bottom, which is near and dear to me, because I'm the digital innovation strategist, we seize value. We look to the outside, we look to trends, we look to what's happening in local markets, what's happening in emerging markets, as well as larger markets where we've been involved for a while. But what are the innovations? What have we been learning in those areas? And how can we take that, not only for innovation and disruption, but I would add, we can also create new businesses and new business models. So there's a lot of that going on too. Then how do we take these and leverage these capabilities and partnerships and the like? And I'll go into a few examples. They're very exciting. So how do we do things here? We start with a foundation to enable the simplify, transform, and innovate mantra. And we have these 4 pillars. On the left, we look at what the business segments are doing and understand their portfolio. We spend time understanding their strategy and help them enable that into a digital first business strategy. We look at their current state, future state, and look at what can be salvaged or what needs to be moving forward. And then we put it together with a variety of transformation roadmaps set with priorities. The innovation components may start out as test and learns. In most cases, they do. And in a classic test and learn, do they succeed? If they succeed, we make a judgment on moving forward. If they don't, we either fix them or scuttle them. And then our intent is to take those innovations and scale them up. So that's pillar 1. Pillar 2 and pillar 4 are really hardcore traditional enterprise architecture. So it's governance, it's architecture review, it's core technologies, it's legacy systems, rationalization, which I talked about in pillar 4, and all of those risk projects and legacy projects. At pillar 2, we take a very deep look of every project that comes in. And when I say deep, some of them we've gotten to the point in the last year and a half, where we can do these really quickly because the businesses are used to going through these reviews but new programs and projects, especially the very costly ones and the highly transformative, we'll spend much more time assessing and evaluating and mapping them. And we do that again across not only the technologies and how they map with strategic alignment, but people and process. And I've listed here the various enterprise architecture domains. I'll go into that on the next slide. So I left for the last pillar number 3, which is new technologies. You can't survive in today's world. You can't bury your head in the sand without moving forward on new technologies. But how do you do that and rationalize them for going forward and do it pragmatically, prudently, cost effectively? So I'm going to talk about that too on the innovation side. So what do we look like and how do we do this? Out of 135,000 employees, this is really done by these top 15 guys here. This is our senior team, 20 plus years experience. And we're in these domains over on the left, but we're really forward-thinking people. And frankly, the way I look at it is these are CIOs in waiting. These are guys who, again, have 20, 25 years experience. They like me, 4 of us work across digital businesses, across all the areas. So we have the business segment architects and the digital innovator architects. Next, we have the security, application and integration architects, our technology, which is our cloud architects, and our data and integration and information architects. So we have specialties in these areas. The top 2 on the left are broader and more end-to-end holistic, which is where myself and 3 others reside and work very closely with our chief architect and VP, Praveen Maturo. And then we have these domain architects. So how do we approach this? We look at the way our businesses have been running in the past, and I'm sure most of you can relate to these. A traditional approach is a variety of, let's say, disconnected, disparate, spaghetti-oriented system solutions, business models that evolved over time. So a smart, modern approach that our digital architecture team, and I'm sure yours will too, is a digital first approach. How can we maximize scale and efficiency with the burden across consumer experiences, customer experiences, through various infrastructures, hosting on-site, on-prem, or remotely with partners on their on-prem? Where is our data? And how can we do effective analytics if our data is still with our agencies or with other regions or other areas that are siloed? And then the application usage. One example is, can we, at a local level, use small digital ERPs to ratchet up the business, deploy it quickly for a new business model, and then over time connect that back to our core SAP systems? So again, it's all about moving fast. And how do we do this? By maximizing speed, agility, and innovation. We look at a variety of approaches, and you've heard of some of these. Headless capabilities to help with the experience. So that's the ability to front end all of your systems and platforms that eventually are consumer facing and allow them to be supportive of much more rich, modern consumer experiences, much more rich device support, as well as being able to allow consumers to pick and choose the types of interfaces that they want at any point in time. So it could be mobile, it could be social, it could be talking to a chatbot just to get information on their order. Various ways to do that. And if you look deeply at your ordering systems or your D2C direct-to-consumer e-commerce, or even your B2B e-commerce. Many of these platforms today are burdened by old legacy, let's say content management front ends or limited device support. By working with your vendors, you can move to their latest movement towards headless. So that's a big one. I'll touch on a couple others, but then move on. The cloud native. We've gone through a transition the last few years where the majority of our work is done in the cloud today. We're in the big three cloud organizations, as you can imagine. We're heavy on Microsoft because we've been working with them for many years. That allows us to implement secure SaaS environments either on our own clouds or with our third-party clouds. And what I mean by that, especially on the third-party clouds, a lot of vendors will offer you solutions that can handle, let's say, subscription management or loyalty or recommendation engines. A lot of those are built on where we've already done the due diligence around the cloud platforms. So our time to market in terms of vetting them for data security and PII and regulatory like PCI, or we can do that much more quickly in third-party cloud environments. So I'll move on from that. Happy to answer questions on any of these. So again, foundations, I've talked about it: people, skills, process, and platforms. Our digital foundations, I began to touch on that, followed by continuous improvement sprints. These are the agile and iterative approaches we do to enable digital capabilities. We have our transformations. So with having these foundations on the bottom allows us to accelerate. So then we have transformation sprints. And then at the top, where we've been for the past year and a half, 2 years, I've been leading quite a number of efforts, close to 100 across the globe for digital ventures. And I'll go into that in a little bit more. So again, some of the areas on the digital first, digital platform, digital foundations thinking. So if you look at it from a cultural change as well as a operational change and cross business change, you have to be thinking your digital platforms are engaged, allowing consumers and customers both. We differentiate between the two because as we work with our customers, the Walmarts, the Tescos, the Okadas of the world, the marketplaces of the world, the Flipkarts, the Alibabas, the Amazons, we have to have intelligent experiences and engaged experiences with our consumers, which are our joint customers, to be honest. And then on the B2B side, of course, we apply the same logic. One exciting example is our NLP project, which I led for voice bots for B2B ordering during the 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. off hours from the customer service that we're taking B2B orders via phone lines. A couple other things I mentioned: cloud first, data lake, another foundation that allows us to have advanced analytics that can work within the various product lines, brands within a business, and then even share some of the findings of activities across candy, pet, food, and the like. So this is, again, the mindset, the cultural thinking and cultural change. And I think if not, I joined Mars in 2016. I came in to help enable and move towards this digital culture, especially in the area of e-commerce. You know, many CPGs and probably many people in the audience struggled with getting us, beyond thinking about, I do 90% of my business with Walmart, I don't want to mess that up. At the end of the day, especially with COVID, the floodgates open. Thus, D2C and helping our customers, especially in emerging markets, is a primary area. And that's where we got into that B2D2C. And that's a very complex way to approach it, but it's working very well in emerging markets. Okay, so next we look at the technology trends as they come in. Sure, there's lots of different aspects, and these are some of the ones that we look at very closely. Consumer privacy on the data side, automation in our factories. Where are we going to go with utilizing blockchains, and do they finally make sense after 5, 6, 7 years? Personally, I believe their trust mechanisms are really coming of age. But then we have to balance that against things like, are all businesses ready for crypto or NFTs in the metaverse? Not necessarily. So we have to balance these. But we also have to have a story around it as thought leaders. We can't just say, no, we're not ready. We have to have logic behind that. Again, so experimentation might be tolerated. But then again, some of these are must-haves. And you, as a company, leverage your enterprise architecture teams to help you through this morass of technology trends. Let's see next. Okay, already covered this, simplify, transform, and innovate, but I wanted to go a little deeper on this. On the top right, we have our growth paradigm, and it's based on a variety of components that we apply really to more and more projects. It started low in the past 2-3 years, moving higher and higher. So we find and discover most of our projects through various means, workshops, hackathons, and the like, using design thinking. And we've trained so many of our enterprise architects, as well as our user centricity team and our business teams and product platform teams in the art of design thinking and user centricity, putting the user at the center, having workshops with the pertinent stakeholders. I'll capture some of the stakeholders a little later. And then we also always look to solve with data, AI, and next generation thinking around how can we leverage data if this is a new data project or has data available that we can utilize either internally or externally. And then automation. Can we automate our thinking as well as can we automate our processes so we can then free up talent to work on the more human-centric interactions as opposed to the automation aspects. So with that comes standard approaches on the bottom, define, ideate, prototype, test. We all know that, but really looking at it and bringing the on the ground as well as up at the top of the organization stakeholders in to help empathize with the consumers and with the customers and really understand what the problems are we're trying to solve, and getting away from the problem that technology companies have, which I've experienced probably over 50% of my career was on the technology side before coming into the CPG side. The problem there is building products and tools and bright, shiny things, and then trying to find a problem to solve. Reverse that. Start with the consumer. What are their pain points? So, how does enterprise architecture enable digital transformation and innovation? We've talked about some of the tools on the left, the roadmaps, how we govern the NTIs, or new technologies, and the risk management. But we also bring in outside thinking, industry's trends. I myself spent early in my career 6 years with a CIO think tank, so which is now owned by Gartner. It's the research board. So industry trends, technology trends, understanding what other CIOs and peers are doing. We spend time doing that, either through our specific network, and Chris alluded to that at the beginning. Connect with the people at this conference, connect with me and other speakers, because that's where you find, activities and solutions to challenges, maybe in totally different sectors that you can apply. And then, of course, in the center, bottom-up opportunities. Listening to your field, listening to the people working directly with the consumers. So for instance, emerging markets like Southeast Asia or Latin America or EMEA are looking at things much differently than the much more mature markets and infrastructures, meaning outside infrastructures. I'm talking VCs, I'm talking transportation modes, I'm talking about legal understanding. So that's way different in Silicon Valley or New York or London or even Tokyo, Israel, etc., than on the ground in India or Southeast Asia or Latin America. So you got to be thinking on that. And you have to look, what's the purpose of these innovations? Is it pragmatic? Does it make sense? You might not know. So then you do quick time to market, quick test and learns, you prove some of the concepts. Not all of them will succeed, but some of them will. And if you begin building with the thinking, or at least have a roadmap of how you could scale it. I tell the story, we had a challenge in our pet India business, getting to consumers where we, as well as Walmart, as well as large Amazon, were not allowed to sell direct to consumers due to foreign direct investment protectionism for online businesses. That's known as FDI protectionism. It's also an area of speciality that I've had over the last 10 years. So it was interesting to me to explain to our India counterparts that they couldn't just come in and start selling direct to consumers. So how did we get around that? Well, we worked out a plan where we worked out business where we imported into the country and then partnered with in-country ventures who had then sold our products to the consumers. Why was this important? Well, we needed to get to the end consumers because COVID was hitting us. So, and then the other aspect, which made me think of this, was we then took that from one of our business segments, talking to during a hackathon with a totally different business of Mars that normally didn't talk to the other groups. They were totally, this is exactly what we need. And they implemented even faster than we did in the first business. So just an example of how the scalability can be not only direct, but across your businesses. So how are we innovating in various businesses? Here's some that also kind of came out of COVID. On the left, this is really B2B, where our businesses typically go out or field salespeople. This happens in many of our, just about every region. You go in, you meet with your retailer, you meet with them live, face to face, and you help them place the order. Of course, you tweak the order and you do all that kind of stuff. And these are long-time relationships. So how could you do that during COVID? So very quickly, we put together an initiative around secure ordering through messaging apps, especially in mobile-first markets. And we were able to put this together in lightning time so that the field sales reps from Mars were communicating directly with the buyers at the retailers and processing the orders without a hitch and getting them into their stores or to their own preferred B2B to C, B2B to D2C, where the businesses would take inventory in country and then sell it direct to the consumer. The next one in the middle is also super dear to my heart. We ran into a challenge with COVID. Holy cow! It's March, April. How are we going to engage trick-or-treating in the United States when everybody's in lockdown? So our team, my boss and myself and one other, we came up with the idea of Halloween will not be canceled for Mars, digitizing the trick-or-treating experience. We use technologies such as gaming technologies, mapping technologies, which we brought in to map the new neighborhoods. You could have your own neighborhood, and then you could decorate your house as a haunted house. And then you could have avatars that were permissioned by your parents, the child's parents, to allow safe and security in a closed environment for what we use gaming platforms to allow this pleasant community experience. And then we connected with our retailers for either at-home delivery or go to the store with a QR code. We built a digital currency with candy points, and all of that came together in time for October 1st, and we ran it for the month of October. Very big in the U.S. press. It was all over the news. And frankly, as we look back at it, it's an early version with avatars and exchange and communications and game playing, early metaverse, 1.0, if you will. And then lastly, on the right, we very quickly, within 1 month, March to April, took our video conferencing platform that we had globally and moved that out to our hospitals and clinics and put it together so pet parents at our 5,200 clinics worldwide were then able to connect veterinary telehealth visits during the pandemic with the pet parent and the pet on the other side, diagnosis and all of that. Very exciting stuff. So what do we do? I'm going to kind of go quickly through this. At the top, problem definitions. We kind of talked about that. What, why, who, where, when, how. Consumer journeys and how we get through those. And what are the art of the possible and the intent? How might we's? And then looking at the features and partnerships that we need, timelines and budgets and prioritization, and then mapping them to goals, and then the platforms that help us. So the journey map of the EA innovation process is number 1 on the left, learning, framing the problem, ideating, then checking in. Then going through things like hackathons and building an opportunities pipeline and prioritizing during our exploration and sense making during our digital planning. We then take it into the test and learn phase where we incubate in 3 to 6 month iterations where we create and learn, take another checkpoint, and then those that make it through the funnel, we move to digital realization where we begin to optimize, measure, and of course scale either within that solution or to other markets. How might we? This is another tool within user centricity. You might have heard this from companies like IDEO that are experts in consulting around user centricity and design thinking. And we focused on not just the revenue being generated, but really looking at how do we attract customers and partners and get them to participate in these ecosystems that we're building. The Treat Town is one good example, or the veterinary telehealth. And then how do we engage them once we attract them? And then how do we delight our consumers and partners ongoing to keep them for repeat and then re-engage them? So very standard stuff you're probably familiar with. To summarize, we start on the top left with innovation planning, looking at the art of the possible. Hackathons can be of any definition you decide, but they work really well, and I love putting them together and putting together an outcome, which is the innovation pipeline and those sprints on innovation. So that's the left-hand side. On the right, it's very important to communicate what you're doing in these areas. So in our business, so we could show other aspects, other business organizations, other products, other brands to know what we're doing, because we're such a large organization and we touch so many of these areas. We obviously promote it through meetings and workshops. Up on the top right, it's innovations on a slide going back to the past 12 months, and then on the bottom a summary. And these are items that we put in periodic reports that we share globally, and we have a monthly newsletter to do that. Here's just a glimpse of about 50 projects that we've been doing globally that are really under the auspices of Digital Ventures Innovations. You can see a little bit. I graded it out because these are things that are underway. But this shows 3 of the hackathons that we started with on the lower. On the left-hand side, we started off small, And then you can see as we go from left to right how we're expanding and scaling and accelerating. So I talked a little bit about this. This is one area, I'm not going to go into deep today, but I've got other presentations on this topic that are very, very pertinent. So it's the importance of understanding ecosystems and ecosystems around innovation, as well as operating your business. So on the left, we talk about internal ecosystems, and this is just a simplified view. So obviously you have your business units on the top, and then if you go clockwise, EA, enterprise architecture, and our domains of our businesses, as well as our technical functions like integration and data and security and all of that. And then the ability to enable your business operation and deploy it in your certain markets. And that includes the technical solutions. And of course, you have to include, as we go full circle, your commercial and legal and regulatory as you go through. But don't forget and have these be involved. That's why I have them in the broader rectangle, the external ecosystem, and a simplified view of that. Your key partners have to be involved. Your new partners have to be involved. And this includes vendors, as well as partners that you've been working with for a longer time that might be part of your foundational aspects. You also have to keep an eye on what the competitors are doing. And then first and foremost, what are the consumers and customers doing? So that's so important. And they all have to be part of EA's view from the way I approach it, from end-to-end enterprise architecture. So how do we go a little deeper? So on the expanded view, I didn't expand the left, that could be expanded huge also, but I pointed out a few things in red. You have to be really cognizant of the ecosystem players in the markets that you're going into, because they're so different. I touched on it a little bit. You know, in New York, Silicon Valley, London, Tel Aviv are just a few of the huge hubs of ecosystem and innovation hubs that are out there. But in many markets, they don't have access to or maturity to local financial help, VCs that are helping with emerging market businesses. They might not even have, as we go left from on the right-hand side to transportation, they might not have the ability to bring direct to consumer to the doorstep. I'm not sure if you're aware, but over 50% of the world does not have a street address. So, you know, I've been looking at and beginning to engage companies like Oki High that are a GPS-based mapping system that allow not only direct to consumer last mile delivery, but they also help with government services such as ambulatory and health services, food delivery, things like that. And those are important aspects, and they might not even be there. So if you want to enter certain markets that will buy your products, you have to look at those aspects. And it might impact, is the energy infrastructure there? Is the utility infrastructure there? Is the regulation friendly? Like I mentioned, the FDI protectionism. Anyway, all of these are local legal. All of these have to be in consideration. So in summary, you know, start small on the left, as Buckminster Fuller says. There's nothing in the caterpillar on the left that tells you it's going to be a butterfly on the right. But really, if you look at what you want to accomplish, think big, think smart, and think 100x. Thank you very much.
Wow, is that a whirlwind? So I have to say, Lee, if you're gonna top off a 3-day conference with a big industry-leading company that is taking all of this to another level, you certainly gave us a great explanation of that. I suspect some people on the phone will be thinking, well, I don't have the budget or the depth of a Mars, right? And my God, look at all these complex, innovative things that they're doing, which is great because it's a view of the future. What question that came to my mind, we are way over time, so let me just ask you one question. As someone, let's say someone is a long way from being able to do what you do at the
Right.
level of speed, what would you suggest is the number one or number two accelerators to get them heading your direction?
So I say that there's a couple of things, Chris. One, you have to get your senior leaders on board, because at Mars, I know before I got here, there were some false starts in this area. But once we got senior leadership who believed in digital first, you have to state the case for it. And it's hard to do if you haven't done that before. There are plenty of consulting firms, as you mentioned, where you and I have been. Accenture is very good at that. Now, you say, well, wait a second, Lee, that's a lot of money just to do that. Well, you know what? Get them to come in and give a short pitch. Even squeeze them a little bit, some of your existing consulting firms, to come in and pitch the value of enterprise architecture in a short 1-2 hour thing, and get them to do it pro bono. That's what I would do. We built this out in a stepwise approach, Chris, over the past 3 years. So what you're seeing here now really took about 18 months to get fully revved. We also we calibrated the right people to bring in, and frankly, a lot of them that we brought in hadn't been enterprise architects before. So it's kind of a fuzzy term in some respects, but it's really, if you combine, yes, you have to have technology depth, but you really need to focus on the end-to-end business value and how you put that together in a digital world. I would take that over, a geek on C++ or cyber encryption, who unfortunately might not be able to pitch the value to the highest level. So hopefully that helps, Chris, and happy to talk to any of you.
I was going to say two things help, Lee. One, the answer to your question, but two, your availability to be able to talk through this with people if they want to call you. That is, I will say to everybody, that's a gold mine. Take advantage of that. Reach out to people. You help, they help you, you help them, and we all see each other in Orlando in November.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care, Lee. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Chris. Nice to meet you.
Gonna wrap up a 3-day session. I want to thank everybody. Let's make sure I'm not missing any balls here and I don't have anything else that's about to happen. No, that is a wrap up of a 3-day session. Please go back, take advantage of any of the topics that are important to you. I'm sure I guarantee you'll learn something if you haven't seen them all. I certainly am happy. Thank you for paying attention to the times that I've actually been able to try to communicate some subjects like that subject. But I want to end the event the same way we started the event. And that is to say, Proqis, their whole mission in life is to bring us, the tribe. I'm not a Proqis employee, in case you haven't figured that out. Proqis' whole mission in life is to bring people together from these subspecialty areas, the tribes out there making this stuff happen, get the sponsors, the users, the thought leaders, everybody in a room, bounce the ideas around and have great things happen. So I want to thank one more time, Software AG, RDoc, Value Blue, Lean IX, Mega International, and all of the individual personal speakers who made this event what it is to be there. So I will see you out. I'll maybe see you in Pagosa Springs if you saw my last talk. If nothing else, I will see you out in the tribe making great things happen with enterprise architecture now. Take care. Bye-bye.